One of the things that intrigued me about the book and your general thinking is how central you place habit in the business of designing product. For you, habit is not a side issue, it's not peripheral. It seems to be almost the thing in itself in terms of developing successful products. Is that fair?
Well, I think it's become increasingly important because as the interface has shrunk, right? So as we went from desktop to laptop to mobile and now wearable, as the real estate gets smaller, there's just less room to trigger people with messages and external, what I call external triggers to prompt them to action. So we have to rely more upon these internal triggers to form habits. So that's why, 90% of the apps you use are the ones that are on your home screen. Those are the ones you see most frequently. And so habits become increasingly important as the interface shrink.
I'm the co-founder of a company called Orchard, and we kind of take a different approach in how we build products. We kind of look at it as a utility. So we created an app that can automatically diagnose and price a smart device and help you sell it. So it's all about empowering the user. So we kind of take a different stance from making a product that's super addictive. But when I think about addictive products in general, and just coming from a perspective of an entrepreneur, I think when you have to step even further back and really think about how we define a successful product and company, right? And I think once you can affect the way we define success, we can really ultimately shape how people create products. And so a very good example is when you meet with investors, they usually look for two very big metrics, growth and user engagement. So the stickier your product is, the more they're willing to put in money, the higher your valuation goes, and so forth. You get more rewarded, and so everyone is incentivized to build products that trigger those rewards.
So what are your tips? We've got lots of designers here, entrepreneurs. What can you tell people about these healthy, habitual products? What do you need to do to create healthy habits?
Right. So first, it's about identifying the right behavior, and that's where I think a lot of times with we all know what we say about what the road to hell is paved with, right? It's good intentions, and so the first step is to figure out what the right behavior is that you want to change. So what's the habit that you want to create?
Roger, you're head of research at O'Reilly, which is one of the top tech publishing companies in Silicon Valley. Does this confirm your research? Is Nir's work a confirmation of what O'Reilly is discovering about the importance of stickiness or habitual nature of technology?
It's not so much that it confirms our research, but it confirms something that we've observed in the world. And because we've looked at how tech has changed, when things started off, like the engineers were kind of in charge. And in a way, what caught us by surprise was things like Pinterest and Airbnb.
And you write about Pinterest
a lot.
Right. And these things, like, what we've done now is we looked at those and said, it wasn't that they had great programmers.
Right.
But that they had great designers, great things about stickiness.
And so there's only three ways to capture somebody else's habit. And just like Facebook captured the habit that used to be going home and watching TV for a few hours, now people are instead on Facebook. Every new technology that captures somebody else's habit has to do one of three things. The first is to pass through the hook with greater velocity. So if you can go trigger action, reward, investment faster than the competitor, that's one way to win a habit. The second way to win a habit is to increase the frequency. So the first is velocity, the second is frequency. So if you can get people to pass through the 4 steps of the hook more often throughout their day, you stand a chance of winning. And this typically happens when there's an interface change. So when we go from desktop to laptop to mobile phones and now wearables, the fact that our technology is more accessible, we can use it more frequently, that means the habit deck gets reshuffled. So Instagram was such a big competitive threat to Facebook that they had to buy them, and now Snapchat is a huge competitive threat that they offered but were rebuffed, because when the interface shifted, this new product, these new competitors could get the habit from the incumbent.
Hi. A couple more questions.
It's a great conversation. My name is Catalina Rizhila. I'm a founder of a nonprofit called Grad Guru, and our mission is to improve completion rates among community college students. We're about half of all Americans start their higher education career at a community college, and about between 10 and 30% finish, so within 6 years, which is not good. So we're trying to fix what I think is mostly a bandwidth challenge. So these students oftentimes are working full-time jobs, have families, speak more than one language, are navigating very complex bureaucracies. And so what GradGuru is trying to do is push out reminders and deadlines and rewards and trying to get them through that loop. But my question to you, and just generally, is when you're competing with kind of the off, these are folks who are competing with, they don't have a lot of time to be on Facebook or on Instagram or on Pinterest. So how do you do that? How do you make that an online or a mobile experience that much more valuable than, I guess, being in the real world?
Right.
Right.
That's a terrific question. Actually, I just published an article today in Inc. around companies that are designing their products with this understanding of how persuasive and enticing all the other things in the world are, right? So I profiled a company called Minerva, which is an accredited university, you're familiar with it, that I visited their headquarters and I got a tour of the product, and they do some really interesting things. One of the problems that plagues online education is this completion rate problem, right? Students just don't finish the courses, it's single digits, it's really abysmal. And part of that is that, online, Facebook is just a click away, right? So if I'm watching some boring professor inside a letterbox on a single view video shot, and that just me, some professor droning on and on and on, that's super boring. And what's much more entertaining is seeing what's happening on Facebook or Twitter or some other site. So Minerva, knowing this fact, designed the online educational experience without making the same basic mistake that everybody does when we change platforms. Everybody thinks, well, let's take the newspaper and put the newspaper online. It looks exactly the same and we'll put it online. Well, that doesn't really work, right? We've got to optimize the content for the medium. And so what Minerva does is optimize the content for the medium and say, no lectures. 100%, a university with 100% zero lectures. Instead, they run their online classrooms designed to be hyper engaging. There was a
Futurecast.
well, yes, exactly.